In this video and in the next few videos, I'm going to be talking about the committee structure in Congress. And I'm sure that if you're listening to this, you're thinking, oh my God, committee structure? Like it sounds really boring because it is really boring. The thing is that in order to understand Congress, you have to understand the committee structure because both chambers, the House and the Senate, are organized in the same way in committees, and most of the work that's done in Congress is done in committees. Right? When we've talked before about how the job of the legislative branch is to write bills, right? And that's the way, so the way that bills get written is that they get written in committee, meaning these committees meet and they discuss whatever bill they're looking at. And there's a process by which a bill becomes a law. We'll be talking about that some more, both in this set of lecture videos and also the next ones. But the work gets done in small committees, kind of like when teachers break you up into small groups, which I personally hate, but break you up into small groups and have you do stuff because it's easier and more efficient to get things done that way. So most of the work done in committees is done, most of the work in Congress is done in committees. That includes writing bills, right? And in order for a bill to have any chance of becoming a law, it has to get majority support in the committee before it can get to the floor. Now, when I'm talking about the floor, I'm not talking about the floor, right? When I'm talking about, when I talk about a bill going to the floor, what that means is that a bill is going to the entire body. So in other words, when a bill makes it out of the committee system and it goes to the floor in the House, that means that all 435 members are going to vote on it. When a bill goes to the floor in the Senate, that means that all 100 senators are going to vote on it. That's the terminology that we use. A bill is either in committee or a bill is going to the floor or is on the floor. But also, I talked about many of the functions of Congress, and one of the things that I talked about is oversight. And oversight is a really important function as well. Oversight hearings take place in committee, right? So if a bill has been passed in both houses of Congress and it's gone to the president and it's become a law, and now the executive branch is implementing the law because that's their job. As I said before, Congress's job isn't over. Congress now has to make sure that the executive branch is carrying out the law the way Congress intended. Remember, the framers of the Constitution intended Congress to be the center of our political system, and so they have a lot of power. When a Congress passes a bill and that bill becomes a law, the executive branch is supposed to carry out that law in keeping with what Congress intended. And we'll talk about that more later on because it actually gets really complicated and kind of interesting. So let's continue on with committee structure. Every committee is headed by a chairperson, right? So there are a bunch of different committees. At some point, I'll show you a list of all the committees. And the chairperson exercises a significant control over the agenda. Now, what do I mean by the agenda? The agenda refers to the bills that the committee is going to debate and discuss and work on. Right? The chairman or chairperson of each committee is the one who decides when certain bills are going to be discussed. And this gives a chairperson a tremendous amount of power, because if a bill is being, if somebody in a committee wants to propose a bill that the chairperson disagrees with or doesn't like, the chances of that bill ever getting heard in committee, the chances that the committee is going to work on is very, very slim. So the chairpersons in each committee are really, really important. And that's going to be important later on when we talk about some of the differences between the House and the Senate. Okay, so the chairperson controls the agenda. Now, there are different types of committees. What we're going to really be focusing on are full committees. Okay, full committees. But there are all kinds of other committees, but it's hard enough to just wrap our brains around one particular kind of committee. The other ones are more specialized committees. And so if you have questions about them, if you've seen things on TV that talk about other kinds of committees, sometimes they're referred to as select committees, feel free to post a question on the discussion board and I'll answer and explain them. But for now, we're going to focus on full committees. These are committees that are present in Congress year after year after year after year. Sometimes they call them standing committees as well, right? That each time a new Congress comes in and new people are elected, these committees are there over and over and over again. Now, every committee has jurisdiction over a specific area. Now, that's probably a word that you haven't heard before, or if you've heard it in a different context. So what do I mean by jurisdiction? When a committee has jurisdiction over a particular area, right, it means that they control specific policies. If there's going to be a bill that has to do with a topic that's under that committee's jurisdiction, that bill will be brought to that committee and they'll be the ones to work on it. So let me give you an example. What you're looking at here is the web page for the Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry in the United States Senate in February of 2022. Periodically, websites will change. Sometimes, depending on which party is in power, they'll even change the name of the committee. So this used to be just called the Agricultural Committee, right? And then it was changed to the Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry Committee, right? So they can change. But this is, and it's pretty standard. The way this web page looks is pretty standard for all the other web pages. You can see on the top it says About, Newsroom, Hearings, like those are the hearings that they're holding, legislation, nominations. Like if somebody gets nominated for a position in the Department of Agriculture, that nomination will be heard first in this committee, and then it'll move on to the floor. And then there's other things as well. But what I want you to focus on is we're on About. If you were on this web page and you clicked on About, there we go. That's what you would see. There's a drop-down menu. Committee membership, if you click on that, it would show you everybody in the committee, both Democrats and Republicans, and the subcommittees will come back to that. Committee rules, jurisdiction is what we're talking about. So what do I mean by jurisdiction, right? I said control over a specific policy area. So if you were to click on, I don't know why it's not going, here we go. This is the jurisdiction of the Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry Committee as of February 2022. And actually, I'm going to go to the next one because it's a little bit easier to read. But what this lists are all the policies that fall under the jurisdiction of this committee. If you look at where it says A1, Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry, to which committee shall be referred all proposed legislation, messages, and petitions, blah, blah, blah. What that means is anytime there's anything having to do with any one of those 17 issues that are listed, the first one is, I'm not going to read them all, but agricultural economics and research. Number 2 is agricultural extension services and experiment stations. And then there's a whole list of them. Any bill that's being proposed that has to do with any one of these 17 issues is going to be heard in that committee. Okay, so if you look on the list, actually, there's a couple interesting things. If you look at number, where is it? Oh, number nine. Number nine, food stamp programs. The Agricultural Nutrition and Forestry Committee is responsible for the food stamp program. Now, why would that be the case? Well, it used to be that the food stamp program was done very differently. What would happen is if farmers made surplus products, right, surplus corn or surplus milk or butter, what the federal government do is they would buy it up and then they would distribute it to poor people. And that was like one of the things that the committee was responsible for. Nowadays, food stamps don't work like that. And you get a card and you punch it in and you can spend money that way. So why then is the Agricultural Committee still handling food stamps? Well, the reason the Agricultural Committee is still handling food stamps is because committees don't want to give up jurisdiction over policies. If they control a particular area, they want to keep controlling that particular area. So it might make more sense to have the food stamp program be in the same committee that deals with welfare, right? Or a number of other programs. But when a committee has jurisdiction over a particular area, they're very reluctant to give it up. So now in the next video, I'm going to continue on with this and we're going to talk about subcommittees and how subcommittees work. And I'm going to use this same committee as an example.